Everyone, welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for March 27th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast, an opening day edition. Love opening day. I feel like we talked about the Super Bowl and March Madness last week, but something different hits about opening day. It's almost like the fresh beginning. You know what's on the horizon as far as the weather, what you got going on for the summer. And it's the one time in any sport across anywhere, NFL, NBA, NHL, where everybody's 0-0 and everybody has hope. Everybody thinks that maybe, just maybe, their team could do it. Gotta love it. We talked about the traditions and everything, having some hot dogs later and all those types of things. But it's different this year with the Phillies. We'll get more into that as we get in. But happy opening day to everybody out there. Before we get started, let's do some quick housekeeping. First, yesterday, I mentioned the NBA lottery and how far the Sixers could fall if they don't happen to get one of the top 3 picks. And it seems like they can drop 3 picks from what I saw. So, like, if you're the first, you can't pick worse than 4th. So that means the Sixers, if they get the 6th, they could drop out and lose the protected lottery pick. So basically, you want them to move to 3 would be the ideal spot for them. So that way, even if they don't win anything, they still get the top 6 pick. But I don't think many times, and I could be way off base, and I didn't feel like doing the research for it, but I don't think too many times 3 teams jump into the top 3. I've seen it where 1 or 2 do. So right now they're tied for 5th. That's a good thing. There's 8 games left. They lost last night to the Wizards, which is a good thing. Worst team in the league, 119, 114. Quentin Grimes had 22. So they're still tied with the Nets, who lost as well to the Raptors, which was a good, even though they're still tied with the Nets, losing to the Raptors was good because now they're both 3 games up on the Raptors for the 7th spot with 8 games left. So as long as they fall within that 6th range, they have a shot. And I think going into the lottery, that's all you want. But enough about that. It's opening day. Don't want to bring it down with Sixers talk. Be sure to check me out on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Be sure to check out Lenny Wagner. He's the author of Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Age of Sports, the story of Walter French. And we've been talking a lot about Walter French in college and playing basketball, being an All-American at Army. Next week, we will start getting into, which I guess is Monday. Monday or Tuesday, April 1st of next week, we'll get into the interview I did with Lenny and start talking about Walter French's time with the A's as well as the Pottsville Maroons. So stay tuned for that. April 1st through April 6th, we'll do a little Walter French special. And if you want to find out more about Walter French, all the information is in the description. You can go to Lenny's website. He will also be doing a little presentation and book signing April 8th at the Mount Laurel Historical Society. I'm going to try my best to get down there for that as well. But like I said, everything you need is in the description. And today is Thursday. That means tomorrow we spend Fridays with AI. We'll have a little bit of a Phillies theme, another alternate reality, if you will. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Fridays with AI. All right. Flyers are in action tonight. If anybody cares, they take on the Canadiens down at the Wells Fargo Center. They're still vying for playoff positioning as well. And I did see a stat yesterday, which I wanted to mention, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. The Sixers have been in Philly since like 1963. Flyers came in 1966. Since the Flyers came to Philly, there's only been 9 non-strike or lockout years that both teams have not made the playoffs. And the guy that did it broke down those seasons. And this is probably hands down the worst winter sports season in Philadelphia history. Just in case you wanted to feel down on opening day, there's something that'll bring you down. Worst time, like really one, you could make the argument one time in the 70s they were both bad, but probably the worst season for both the Sixers and Flyers combined in their history, and only 9 times since 1966-67 that neither one of them are making the playoffs, which I guess in the big picture is kind of impressive. But if you really think about it, they have 4 championships in that time. Probably should have more. But again, opening day, don't want to bring it down. So let's get into the Phils. We'll start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, lots of talk this offseason about extending either Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, or both. And I asked, if you had to choose one, who should the Phillies extend? This kind of surprised me a little bit. 60% of you said JT Realmuto. I probably would have figured that to be the opposite, but lots of good reasoning for it. I had one person that said neither. I could see that too. That frees up a ton of space to go after some people. But a lot of the pro JT folks said that, yes, offensively he's taken a couple steps back. However, defensively he's still solid. And more importantly, and we saw this for years with Chooch, he's great with the rotation. And probably guys like Nola and Wheeler and Sanchez and even Luzardo, probably to a certain extent, probably want him to be their catcher just for his defense. That's an aspect I didn't necessarily take into consideration when I was saying that. And also, too, they don't have a catcher in the system that's ready to come up yet. So while you might free up JT's salary, you're still going to have to use it on somebody to be the catcher unless you believe Rafael Marchand can stay healthy and be the guy, kind of the bridge catcher. But the anti-JT talked about his age, declining offensive skills and things like that. And Schwarber as a DH, as long as he can keep hitting bombs, that was the big takeaway for the pro Schwarber guys, was just, hey, he guaranteed to give you 30, 35 home runs minimum a year. So I kind of swayed to the other side after hearing some of the arguments. I'll be honest. I went into it with an open mind, really kind of thinking that JT would be the odd man out. And who knows, they might end up signing both of them depending on how this season plays out. But I kind of did, like I said, sway to the other side, basically because of the pitching staff and how good that pitching staff is going to be. You do want that consistency because I feel as though that was the underrated. Like we talked about Chooch and some of the timely hits and things he did like that, catching the most no-hitters. But the way he called the game, and JT is a savvy vet when it comes to that. So we'll see what happens. I still am keeping JT, being his last year in Philly, as my bold prediction. I just have a feeling somebody's going to swoop in and offer him a ridiculous offer that he cannot turn down. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. We'll have another one here in a couple minutes, but it is opening day. And as with opening day, I said everybody's 0-0. Everybody has hope. Everybody thinks this could be the year. I remember specifically going back to 1993, Phillies coming off a last place season, 90 losses. But I was like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe. And a lot depends on how you get off to how good of a start you get off to. They went down to Houston that year, won 3 in a row, and they were kind of off to the races then the rest of the way. Last year, we got off to a good start, did not finish so well. But it's all about predictions and things like that. So I will give you my win total prediction and where I see this team going. But first, a quick recap of the past 2 days. I gave my 10 bold predictions. I said Bryce is going to have an MVP-type season. Zach Wheeler will win the Cy Young finally. I said Christopher Sanchez will emerge as the number 2 guy in the rotation. Also get some Cy Young votes. Bryson Stott will be an all-star. I do think Rob Thompson gets fired. Something tells me there's going to be a lot of high anxiety and just urgency with this team, and I do think we're going to get a new manager this year. I want to be wrong about this one, but I don't see Trey Turner turning it around. I see him getting moved down into the lineup at some point during the season. I think Alvarado is going to emerge as the closer. We know Rob Thompson likes to do the closer by committee. but I think Alvarado is just going to step up and be that guy. I could see him getting between 20 and 30 saves even as well. Brandon Marsh will be the best outfielder on the team this year. There will be a big trade, whether that's one of the pitchers, because Andrew Painter is slated to be in and help them out down the stretch run, or a bat in the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce moves back to the outfield. But I do think that, and I just have a feeling this is the swan song in Philly for JT. Again, a lot of that is dependent upon how this season plays out. So where do I see? Kind of a mixed bag there with my predictions. Some positive, some negative. Listen, this is still a good team. I think we're going to have a fun summer. It's going to be must-watch TV. I think every day people are going to be tuning in. I think the ballpark is going to be packed. I think it's going to be the spot to go, especially like on a weekend where it's like, hey, let's go to the Phillies game before we go out. The National League is much better than it was last year. Obviously, you have the Dodgers, you have the Padres. The Brewers will be tough. The Cubs got better. I think the Cubs might surprise some people. I mean, and then our division. You have 3 teams. I could see a team like Washington or Miami. Both of them should be better. But where does that leave the Phils? I think with the injuries right now the Mets have, I'm not, and I know this could come back to bite me in the ass. I know because of what happened in the playoffs last year. I'm not concerned about the Mets. And Mike, I know you're probably watching this. Sorry, I'm not worried about the Mets. I am worried about the Braves coming back healthy this year. I don't see the Phillies repeating as National League East champions. However, I do see them getting to 90 wins again. I think with that pitching staff, I do think with the lineup, for the most part, they will go through their slumps. They will go through their stretches. I do see them getting to 90 wins. I actually bet this. I had a free bet on DraftKings, and DraftKings actually had the win total. I actually went over because it was a free bet. I probably wouldn't have put my own money on this, but they had the win total at 91.5. And I think they're going to be in that 90 to 92 range. So I did bet that. It was plus money for it, so why not? I don't think that's going to be enough to overtake the Braves for the division, which might not be a bad thing for the Phillies, though. It's going to keep them in a race because if you really think about last year, the NL East was over by August, and I think that may or may not have played a role in sort of the August-September sort of slump they had. They weren't really challenged. I mean, it got a little dicey there near the end when the Mets got hot, but for the most part, the National League East was over in August, and it's easy to get complacent when you're not really playing for anything. And we saw the 2 years prior, the Phillies got hot when they needed to because they needed to. They were fighting for playoff position in playoff spots. I think that's what we're going to see this year. I do expect a slower start. Maybe April's okay, but I see them struggling somewhat in May and June until they get it together. Once the trade deadline hits, though, I think they're going to find their groove and roll into the playoffs. I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be tough, though, because you got San Diego, you got the Dodgers, you got the Mets, you got the Braves, Cubs, the Brewers. The Cardinals are always one of those sneaky teams that could always put something together. So Arizona is another team who obviously seems to have the Phillies number. It's going to be tough, but I got them between 90 and 92 wins and making the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be the third wild card or the first wild card or the third wild card, but they will get into the playoffs. I think they win a series too. I think they finally get over that hump. Now, by not winning the World Series, I can't see them winning the World Series, but if they win that, if they get to the playoffs, who knows? I just don't know if this team has it's kind of like the Eagles coming into this year. I got to see what happens when they have some adversity because it seems like they were pressing a lot last year and they folded under the pressure. Will they do the same thing this year, or will they sort of turn it around like the Eagles did? Be great. Not ready. I don't think they're going to win the World Series. I'm not going to predict them. I do think, like I said, 90 to 92 wins. make the playoffs, and actually win a series as well. But that is today's question of the day. How many wins you got the Phillies having this year? Want to give me their finish as well? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. But it's opening day. How many games are the Phillies going to win this year? It's Wheeler versus Mackenzie Gore today, 4:05. I cannot wait. Buckle up. It's baseball season. Be sure to check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences. Lots of great things going on their fan network. If you want to look at some of their podcasts, they're available wherever you get their podcasts as well as on YouTube. But go to clashingconferences.com to check out and see what they're all about. Good dudes over there, Steven and the whole crew. Great things. So go check them out. And then go to Philly Goat. My golf shirt should be coming today from Double Bogey Down. Philly Goat has that partnership with them. I got the Philly Frenetic. Looking forward to wearing that on my golf trip in April. And then I mentioned the rope hats yesterday. I did check these out. And these are, I guess, what's coming back. It's the latest, the newest rage, I guess. And I meant to grab it. It's over there. But the champion hats that the Eagles wore were the rope hats. It gives me like a late 80s, early 90s vibe when you're down at the shore. Kind of like a beach type hat. They got a few good models. So go check out the rope hats. Get your golf shirts from with the partnership with Double Bogey Down. And of course, I'm wearing my fans today. They got fans, kid sizes too. We just noticed the other day, kid sizes for the fans. So go check out phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. And tell Ryan you heard it here on this day in Philly sports history. All right, today we're going to go back to 2004 and continue our March Madness and Big Five disappointment theme that wasn't planned but seemed to be the theme here throughout March. Today, it's St. Joe's turn. And on this day in 2004, they lost 64-62 in the Elite Eight to Oklahoma State. The Hawks actually led by 6 at halftime in this game, but Oklahoma State battled back. And the end of this game was tense. It was exciting. It was everything you would expect a March game to be, especially in the Elite Eight, except for the outcome for Philly fans. It was back and forth the entire second half. Pat Carroll hit a 3 from the top of the key with 30 seconds left to give St. Joe's a 62-61 lead. And then it seemed like neither team had a timeout, but it was maybe St. Joe's had one. Either way, it was a frantic finish by Oklahoma State. They didn't seem like they knew what they were doing. And then, of course, John Lucas III, the son of former Sixers coach John Lucas, hit the three-pointer to give the Oklahoma State Cowboys a 64-62 lead. And then Jameer Nelson's shot at the buzzer fell short. He actually had a very good look, and it would have been probably one of the greatest shots in Philly sports history had it gone in. But unfortunately, Jameer just did not have it in this game. He shot 6 for 18 for 33%. Only 2 for 12 from two-point range. Just struggled. Credit Oklahoma State for having a good game plan to shut him down. But we know that season, St. Joe's went 30-2, number 1 team in the country going into the tournament. Jameer Nelson was a consensus All-American and the Player of the Year. And me, being a staunch Temple fan, I mentioned being a hardcore card-carrying Nova hater the other day. Certainly because they were in our league, a hardcore St. Joe's hater, but I found myself rooting for this team. And maybe that's what happened in both Nova that year and St. Joe's in 2004. Maybe I was the jinx by rooting for them, but it just wasn't meant to be. As St. Joe's loses 64-62 in the Elite Eight to Oklahoma State, ending that magical run that the Hawks went on that year. But just like Villanova, if you want any consolation, the Oklahoma State Cowboys did lose in the Final Four to Georgia Tech. Probably the last time, off the top of my head, I think Georgia Tech went to the Final Four or was even anywhere decent. So you got to love that. But on this day, St. Joe's, the dream season ended with a 64-62 dramatic loss to the Oklahoma State Cowboys, ending their Final Four bid. And then finally today, our Big Five Women's Hall of Fame Spotlight. We're going to spotlight Jill Crandley from LaSalle. She's a William Tennant grad. She played at LaSalle from 1982 to 1986. She was first team All-Metro Atlantic in 86. The year before, she was second team All-Metro Atlantic. She did help LaSalle go to 2 NCAA tournaments, including a 21-9 record her senior year. She scored over 1,400 points, which is number 10 all-time in LaSalle history. She was known as a shooter. She is still fourth in field goal percentage and field goals made. She was a LaSalle Hall of Famer in 2006, Big Five Hall of Famer in 1993, and a pretty cool story. Her old neighbor reached out to me earlier this month through YouTube. It was like, you should spotlight Jill Crandley, my ex-neighbor, and was going on. She was like, she went to Tennant. She used to play in one-on-one, or Crandley and the neighbor used to play one-on-one in her driveway all the time. And a cool story, she won a free throw shooting contest as a kid, won a trip to Disney World, but just goes to show that's why you spread the word. That's why you hit up YouTube and reach out to this. So shout out to the neighbor for reaching out and telling some cool Jill Crandley stories. And Jill, shout out to you for being today's Big Five Women's Hall of Fame Spotlight. Jill Crandley from LaSalle, 1982 to 1986. Great shooter and one of the best to ever do it up at Broad and Alney. So Jill, we salute you today. On this day in 2004, the St. Joe's Hawks lost to the Oklahoma State Cowboys 64-62 in the Elite Eight, ending that magical run when John Thompson III, there always is a Philly tie, it seems like. And this time it was his dad was the coach of the Sixers, but it just wasn't meant to be for the Hawks on this day. But enough with the disappointment. It is opening day. Get your Phillies wins predictions in, and it doesn't even matter how today plays out. And from now until game time, there's going to be excitement. Enjoy it. It's like a new beginning. The weather's going to start getting warm. We're going to be going to the beach, the pool, all of that stuff. Baseball will be on pretty much the entire summer. Looking forward to it. Anything to drown out the dreck that is the Flyers and Sixers. We'll have more on them, as well as a recap of the Phillies the Phillies opening day game down in DC tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Don't forget about Fridays with AI. We will have a Phillies twist on it tomorrow. Been having some deep conversations with AI this week. Pretty interesting how this week's plays out. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Don't forget to check out Lenny Wagner, and stay tuned April 1st through April 6th for our Walter French Spotlight in honor of Lenny. Don't forget, too, he is at the Mount Laurel Historical Society on April 8th. Go to Philly Goat. Get the shoes. Get the hats. Get the golf shirts. Get everything at Philly Goat. Tell Ryan that Jim Montgomery sent you, and he'll give you a 10% discount. It's opening day. If you couldn't tell, I'm excited. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 27th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. Go Phils. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.